We are up and running. It's the new year, not the smartest guys in the room. What is going on, Tom? Tom's getting a new car. Is that what I'm
Welcome,
hearing?
welcome to 2024.
2024, we have more nonsense than 2023. John Jay, Debbie Griffiths, hey, two people that will be at Creative Con. They're both going to be in the house.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, I knew John was coming. I wasn't sure if Debbie was coming, but it's awesome to hear that get to see both of them.
Debbie's in, John's in. This is good stuff. What's up, John? How's New Year treating you?
So far, so good. How are you all doing today?
We're doing good, man. We were just talking about Tom. Tom's going to drive through Pittsburgh and pick me up on the way to Creative Con. And so we're going to do a road trip together.
Road trip. Oh, something tells me it won't be the same as road trip.
Yeah, we'll get to Chicago, and Tom will be giving me his magic mushrooms and all his green stuff, whatever he's got going on. There'll be a big cloud of smoke coming out of this car. That's all what's going to happen. You're not going to force your ways on me, are you, Tom?
What are you talking about? My ways, my magic mushrooms. I've literally, I'll tell you right here, right now, breaking news. I've never done mushrooms.
Well, let's move on. Not the smartest guys in the room. Hey, Jason got a new picture. What is this picture? He's holding a MediaCaster's book up. Look at this guy. Hey, Billy. I was just watching a Billy video. He cleaned his office. I usually try to clean my office over the break. You clean your office over the break, Tom?
No, I didn't clean my office. I tend to keep all the clutter like in front of me. So that the camera can't see it. So
Yeah.
like down here is a bit of a disaster, but from here up, it looks great, right? I'm very presentable, from about here up, from the end of my
Yes.
strings on my hoodie up. It's very presentable around here. But if you could see what was happening, there's cups and empty drink bottles and tape and just all kinds of random assorted stuff on my desk.
I got some boxes. How about John Jay? How is your work set up? You got, because what people can't see, what's it look like?
It's a mess. I'm in a very small section of the radio corporate offices. I have my desk, got papers everywhere. I got a laptop on my right, a main computer on the left, and my voice tracking equipment, microphone, all that stuff to the far left, and some speakers. And behind me is all storage. So it's not fit for human consumption.
There you go. Not fit. I like that. I keep thinking about like going into different offices. Like right now, I have an office in my house in the basement. We had it built when I moved here. And now I'm outside that office door. Like if I point that way, my stuff there's more boxes, more filing cabinets, more stands for microphones and things like that. And I'm thinking like, how far out that way do I go before it's time to like go into the city and get a space? Is there a point where you've taken too much and you need to move? Any opinion?
I mean, I don't know. For me personally, so right now I'm in my office is one of the spare bedrooms in my house, right? So we've got a 3-bedroom house, and there's just Becky and I right now. So like, we've got 2 spare bedrooms. So one of the spare bedrooms I converted into my office, and that's worked out fine. But it is getting a little cramped in here, and I am sort of feeling like I need a little space. And if I ever bring on team and ever want to have a space where I can have, host meetings, whether it's team or client, whatever the case may be. Obviously, the smallest spare bedroom in my house is not ideal. So our plan is in the next year to build. I have the luxury of having space. So I've got a bunch of property because I live in a kind of rural area of the Hudson Valley. And so I've got the luxury of space. And so our plan is to build a barn next door, a barn / like sort of garage shop building next door, about 100 yards away from the house. And in that barn on the second floor is going to be the second floor of that barn, which is going to be like a roughly like 24 by 50 or 60 is going to be kind of the footprint of that building. And the second floor of that building is going to ultimately become my office. So the upstairs of that barn / garage building is going to become my office. So that's the plan for me. But like I said, I have the luxury of space, and I know not everybody has that. Um, but yeah, I mean that's the plan. So the plan is not to stay in the spare bedroom permanently. The plan is to kind of get it out of the house, but still at home on the property, because I have that option and that luxury, and I like that. The commute becomes a 5 minute walk, or less than 5 minute walk, a 2 minute walk, as opposed to like getting in the car and driving somewhere. So it's convenient and comfortable and easy, but also a little bit separate, because I do like the idea of being out of the house for work ultimately. So yeah, I mean that's my solution. Um, Looking forward.
All right, that's fair. I was out of the house this morning, networking group, had the biggest breakfast burrito. It was a new place. I was going to ask them for iced coffee, but I just couldn't do it. So I went orange juice today. I couldn't. I couldn't do it. Okay, Tom, Tom says we're going to get back to our roots today. We're going to talk story, the story messaging, talking story. So, John, I'm going you. I'm coming Debbie, Jason, Billy, Phil. Come on up, Kelsey. If as a John, for you as a business owner, is there a story behind it? Is it like, hey, John, I'm ex law enforcement. Go on, Tom. What do you want to add?
Well, I was just going to say, should I preface it? Should I mention what I sent you, the text I sent you before,
Do
that
so,
that
man.
quote,
Get on it.
right? So basically, the Dom and I, we're texting back and forth, talking about figuring out what we wanted to talk about this morning. And I said, let's go back to basics. And the reason it was on my mind was because this morning I created a graphic that I'm going to sell. I created a graphic that I'm going to post, that I'm going to share from my book, Legendeering, and the graphic is essentially a paraphrase of a quote shortened a little bit to work on the graphic. But what it boils down to is this line from the book where I say, brands become legends not because of what they sell, but because of the stories they tell. And so that's kind of that's the backdrop, or that's kind of what spurred this conversation between Dom and I, is just talking about like how I believe, right, that story is really what makes or breaks a brand, not the price of their products, not what exactly their product is, not how different their product is. It's really story that makes the difference, right? That can make the difference between a brand fading into obscurity or becoming a legend in its industry. So that's the background. Just
That
so
was
we've
a
got
much better
the
explanation
context.
than what I did. So thank you, Tom. And now, John, follow that up.
Well, for me and for my show, it's all about the story. And what I tell people in our discovery call is it doesn't really matter what you do, what your expertise is, books you've written, whatever it might be, that you think sets you apart as authority. We will promote that stuff throughout the show. I'll promote it, and at the end, you really promote it. But it's about your story, and you get people to fall in love with you with your story, and you can't argue with your story. They can argue with your opinion, they can argue with your so-called expertise, but they can't argue with your story. So really, if you can't tell your story, which is either investigating crime or trauma you've been through, how you've overcome it, built a life afterwards, and what you do with that today, then it does not fit the show format. So, again, I'll say this one more time. For me, for my show, for the radio show, and for the podcast, it's all about the story. And I repeat that. And so many times I have people, they're like, yeah, but I wrote this book and I'm an expert in this. And I tell them, look, it doesn't fit the format. And some of these radio stations has taken me 5 years to get on. Other ones I've been in 5 years. And if I start putting infomercials on, they'll drop me in a heartbeat. So if the story doesn't fit, it doesn't fit, and it's not going to happen.
John, so you are you say, I would say ex law enforcement, but is that the proper, is that, or are you always law
There's
enforcement
very
because you,
few that there's very few things I'll correct people on. So we have a terminology. So if
yeah,
someone calls me X, I correct them, and say no, I'm retired.
there
I
you go.
have a
See, I wanted to
retired
know. I
company.
wanted to thank you for your service. So
There's former, and that means people leave in good standing for whatever reason. There's retired, and then there's X. X usually means, in our book, someone that was resigned, incarcerated, imprisoned, or whatever for less than favorable or criminal behavior. That's why I object to that term tremendously.
so the correct term is retired
Yeah,
and
retired or former, unless they're
former.
scumbags, then it's X.
Okay. Yeah, we won't say it. But I wanted to go down to you because, well, a lot of times we talk, you don't share your picture and, it's not about you. But the story really is John was injured in the line of duty. So, I mean, a lot of the story is based on, is it not, that your understanding of what it takes to wear the badge and everything like that?
Well, when it fits the format, because sometimes I have people on that. I'll give you an example. I had several guests on that their spouses died by suicide. I don't have a point of comparison. I can just tell you from a cop's point of view the difficulty investigating that. But it's really about the guests, and there's very few times I will add a lot of my own story in there. Because, to be honest with you, after I just put up my 580th episode of the podcast, and it's about 270 some odd episodes of the radio show. It's two-hour segments. If I did that every time, it would get tiresome. So most of the time, it's really about the guests and their stories.
Good stuff. Hey, and no, we appreciate you, John, and always love your angle on things. Tom, you have any follow up on that?
No, I mean, I think it makes a ton of sense to me. Makes a ton of sense, that it's important to you, John. That your guests really tell their story. At the end of the day, like I said, like it's not about what you sell, right? It's about the stories, right? And John, you put it really well when you talked about like, it doesn't really matter, what your expertise is if you can't tell a compelling story around that expertise or that helps people understand your expertise, then that expertise is effectively useless. If you can't communicate what you have in your head, and storytelling is the most effective way to communicate expertise, right? If you can't communicate the expertise that you have in your head, then it's really not helping anybody. So yeah, I agree. I think John nailed it.
Okay, let's dig in on it. So, are there ways to get better at it? Are there, like, I love Clubhouse. I love Clubhouse for storytellers. I want you to be able to jump on a stage, articulate message, get off. Jump on stage in a different room. Jump on a stage that's not about you. Jump on a stage that's talking about different things. Jump on a stage and figure out how your message fits. How can you add value to wherever you're in? And okay, you can do that there. You can do that as a guest on a podcast. You can do that making your own videos, but it's add value, practice, practice, practice. So Debbie, tell us a little about your story. What are you working on? How do you hope it grows in 24? What are you up to?
Good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year. Uh, as probably many of you already know, I've written a book about the impact of gaslighting. It was basically on my story. So I'm really trying to get that message out to raise awareness, educate on the red flags so that, others don't fall into that trap, so to speak. So one of the things that I'm trying to do, of course, I'm in the year or so that I've been trying to get this message out, I've been dabbling with video. I've been dabbling in podcasts. I've been, dabbling everywhere to see where my message is going to resonate. Um, and I'm also trying to empower other women who have been victims themselves survive and they're survivors, that they will, that they will feel confident enough to open up and share their story, because there's so much healing power in just opening up. So that's where I'm at today. And I have a quick question for you, Dom. Is Tom going to get the elephant treatment in
Oh,
Pittsburgh?
Well, Tom, that me and Debbie. Well, we were in Somerset, Debbie, which is a different direction, but me and Debbie out in front of Eden Park. So maybe I'll get him some smiley cookies. We have a place called Eden Park that has about 30 restaurants around Pittsburgh, and they have a smiley. They have smiley cookies, which I got for Debbie. Then she got them for her son when she came back this way. But they had a giant elephant that almost looked like a woolly mammoth out in the parking lot for no reason at all. It was just like a normal family restaurant, but it has a giant elephant out in front of it. And so me and Debbie took a picture in front of it. But Debbie, anybody here, I think if you see a picture, please, this is for Dom's storytelling tips for 2024. The world wants to see the world wants to see that's weird. The world wants to see the world through your eyes. I need a better first part of that. So, but if you are alongside the road and you see the world's biggest iced tea, get out, take a picture, tell a story. If you're going somewhere and you see a mountain that you've never seen, get out and tell a story. I mean, you have to. What's a better? I just think you have to look at it as like, I'm from Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's different than Tom in New York. Pittsburgh's different than Debbie in Santo Rancho Margarita. How do you say that, Debbie?
Rancho Santa Margarita.
I wish I lived in a place called Rancho Santo Margarita. It just sounds good, doesn't it? Something's good about it. Anyway, get out.
Sounds like sounds like a restaurant.
What kind of restaurant?
I mean Tex-Mex.
Yeah, I was thinking Tex-Mex. Okay, go on. All right.
I don't think Tex-Mex would fly much here in California. Sorry, Tom.
Oh, ouch, Tom.
Okay. California
Yeah.
Mexican? Can we say that?
Sure. As far as I'm concerned, we have authentic Mexican food here. So there you go.
Ouch.
But I'm biased. What can I say?
Yeah, and you're pretty far south, aren't you, Debbie?
Yeah, I am. I'm only just a couple hours from the border with Mexico.
There you go.
So there you go.
Hey, I'm going to New Mexico soon. Me, my dad, and my sister are heading off to Mom's homeland. We're going to New Mexico, and we're going to eat at one of Mom's favorite places. So anyway, okay, not the smartest guys in the room. Jason, we're talking storytelling. Do you have like a core story that you follow or that you're developing? Or go on, my friend.
Well, for Man to Man Voices and Stories, that podcast or platform, it's all about men's integrated stories of success and failure and how they're complete. And that's all it's all about. It's not. I I'm on a mission really to really edify men and their experiences, and they're not talked about enough. Maybe accomplishments, but it's like how you deal with failure and success at the same time. So that's pretty much my thought and what I want to tell. But I wanted to say something. I'm a Mexican, um, and I'm a California Mexicano, and we don't try to compete with Texas. Texas has a Tex-Mex. I don't know why they call it. Mexicans are Mexicans, and our food is ancestral. There's not much difference in it. Um, it's been made for the same way for years, so I don't know why that was even brought up. I mean, I think it's funny, but you can get a taco de birria here the same you could in San Antonio. They're the same spices, the same flavors. It's just the love that puts in the food. So I just wanted to put that story out there.
The love and the food. Okay, so Jason, if you have guests on, your show. Do they ever not have a clear story or anything like that? And you're like, whoa, what the hell is this person talking
Sometimes,
about? Yeah.
sometimes there's not. It's not all. I think part of me learning interviewing skills is uncovering even the one they didn't think of. Like when I was interviewing you, Dom, you had no idea. I gave you a series of questions, but you had no idea that I was going to bring out motivation champs and the story of your picture behind your wall of Muhammad Ali. You had no idea. And then I focused and zoned in on that, and then you flourished in the interview. You didn't know that I was going to do that, but that's something that you can see in the moment. And sometimes people are never asked, and that's where their best story is. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, that's a good one. Sometimes they're never asked, but that's where their story is. Uh, John Jay, interviewer tip. That seems like something you would say. So, do you ever like pride yourself on asking a question that I used to do this discovering inspiration, and sometimes I would watch other people's interviews with the same guest I had just to make sure that I didn't ask. I didn't want to ask some like traditional question that they've been asked like 10 times. So does that ever come up, John, where you're like, damn, I can't wait to ask a question that they haven't answered
I
before?
purposely do not listen to other people's interviews or watch other people's interviews because I don't want to discolor our conversation. I really want it to be organic and for them to tell their story. And I know a little bit about what we're going to talk about, but not a lot of details. And I really listen to what they say and I respond to what they say. That's so I don't have scripted questions. I don't have any of the stuff prepared ahead of time, but I do have some basic information about what they're going to talk about. And in the case of authors, books, they've got websites, other stuff, so I can promote that throughout the show. But I purposely do not watch or consume anybody's interviews with anybody else. Good for that very, very main reason.
Well, and I was just going to say, Dom, I think the trap that sometimes people can fall into, and this may resonate for John, but the trap that sometimes people can fall into when they're not experienced interviewers is if you spend too much time watching other people's interviews, then often what they'll end up doing is just copying the questions, and that's not really what good interviewing is about, right? Good interviewing is about being curious, listening to what the interviewee is saying, right? And then following your curiosity and asking the follow-up questions based on what they're telling you, right? So really good interviews kind of feel more like a conversation between two people getting to know each other than they do a question and answer period, right? But I think, to John's point, to expound on that, I'd like to go one step further. I think the trap that people can fall into if they're not paying attention, if they're not careful, is if you consume too much interview and you try to copy other people's, interview styles, then you very easily can end up in a situation where you're just reusing other people's questions that don't really make sense in the context of the interview that you're doing, and don't lead to a better interview, right? They actually objectively make the interview worse because you're not present and engaged in the conversation that you're having. You're focused on asking a question that you thought was a good question in another interview with another subject, with another interviewee, and from another interviewer. So at the end of the day, curiosity is like the best weapon in your arsenal when it comes to interviewing. Listen, be curious, and ask the follow-up question based on what the person is telling you. Right? Again, good interviews are conversations. So that's what I think.
Agree, man. Nothing. It's disappointing too sometimes when you go on. But I guess if you're on somebody's show, it's their show, so they can do what the hell they want. But it is disappointing sometimes when they go through those 6 questions, 8 questions, and they're like, you think like maybe you picked up on something and you want to expound on it, and they go right to next question. And you're like, oh, I thought we were talking about this. And then they're right on to the next question. Now, like Tom, you said on TV, they do that a lot of times. And I've felt that way on TV before where I'm like, whoa, but there's breaks and commercials and things like that. So it is, you got 30 seconds. And
Yeah, and that's specific and kind of particular to sort of news, right? Television news, where they'll do what's called a hit, right? And so they'll have a segment, they'll do a hit, and they'll have an author or somebody on for 90 seconds. You've got 90 seconds and you've got 3 questions to get to, and so it's all about rapid fire. These are the 3 things that you want to get out. So we're going to ask you 3 like kind of setup questions so you can say what you want to say, and it's all like it's all kind of pat answers. It's not really an interview, right? It's just not, right? Like what you see on like 60 Minutes, those are interviews, right? What you see on the news in the morning, those are hits, and they're very different things.
Right on, brother. Hear you, man. All right, not the smartest guys in the room. We're getting to Billy, who got us started down one of these weird paths today with him cleaning his office. Tom admitted his office is messy. John Jay said the same. Debbie, you didn't say you got a messy office. We're going to find out from Jason. Hold on, we're going around the room here before we get to Billy. Debbie, how's your office?
It's okay. I mean, I know where everything is. Could it be neater? Yes. Is it a total pigsty? No. So it's somewhere in between.
Okay, good answer. Jason, how's the office?
Like a mad scientist lab.
Okay. Dragon, how's the office?
My office is actually beautiful because
Do people come in your office?
Oh no, not at all.
Is it? I want to see a picture.
Nobody comes into Dragon's
Text me
lair.
a picture of your office. Is it really beautiful? Go on.
It is, well, because for Christmas, my daughter and my wife built me a whole new podcast studio.
Ah.
So I've got like all the stuff organized. So I would assume that it'll be a mess in a week, but right now it looks amazing.
Okay, we're going around. We're hearing from everybody on this subject before we get to Billy. Beth, office, clean. Where do you work from? You at a kitchen table? You in an office at the real estate company? What do you got going on?
Yeah, I work out of the office and out of my home office, but no, they are not clean. But I know where everything is. So if somebody came in there and tried to organize it, I would probably want to punch them. Yeah, it's a mess.
I like that. Yes, I used to have an office when I was in insurance in Pittsburgh, downtown, overlooking like the city, like wood grain. It was the coolest looking office. I couldn't stand being in my office for 10 minutes. As soon as I got there in the morning, I'd be like walking to the water fountain, walking to the little break room, walking. I felt like, and then I'd be in my office. I'd call home. I'd be like, Liz, nobody's talking to me today. I'm so depressed. And I just I could not take it. So that's my history with offices. Oh, Dr. Tachi, how's the office? Is it beautiful? What do you got going on? She's like, I'm not even telling you. Okay. Phil, where are you working out of? Is it clean? Can people walk in it? Go on.
Well, yeah, it's got stuff spread around because I'm an Amazon influencer. So I'm like Billy. I got boxes in the front lobby of my doorway. I got boxes all over the studio, and and there's different cycles for all these boxes, whether they're going on shoppable video shoots or live streams. And yet I've got office paperwork and stuff that's in there, but I'm in a way where I can peel everything off to the side and still have my backdrop and everything clean looking for the camera, so there's no clutter showing on the desk.
One of those. You're like Tom. Okay. Stephanie, how's the office? Clean? Where are you working out of? Are you hiding stuff? What do you got going on?
Well, I'm in my van right now, and it's a brisk 55 degrees, and I'm doing some scissors, so it's semi-organized. Nice.
What does that mean? You said doing some scissors?
Yeah, I'm sharpening some scissors right now.
Oh, okay. Okay, let me read. Now I got it. You remind me. Okay. Random acts of kindness, little thing. Scissors, sharpening, repairs, sells for barber and cosmetologist. I got it. You should go see my buddy Art. Okay, now, Billy, you started down this path. So storytelling, what's it mean to you, Billy? And tell us about your videos. Tom, I'm jealous of these Amazon creators. I can't figure it out. Billy, they don't want me. I apply all my links on there. I put sites where I had thousands of followers, connections. They don't want me. What did I do wrong, Billy?
I don't know, man. Your guess is as good as everyone
They
else's.
hate me. Yeah, I can't break in, man. But I'm watching what you're doing. It's good stuff. Go on.
Yeah, man. Who knows? Who knows? I don't know. I mean, there's some people charge you $100 and they'll tell you how, but I don't know. No, seemingly no rhyme or reason just by the nature of the asking people and all that stuff. But yeah, man. The whole reason I cleaned my office was I made a last minute tax purchase of a new Apple display, Apple Studio display. And so I was like, man, I can't put this $1,600 display on this crappy desk with all this junk all over it. So I ended up cleaning my whole entire office space, which needed it, but it wasn't because I'm like a awesome office person. Like I just wanted my display to feel nice. But yeah, man. So anyway, storytelling. I mean, I think it's what life is, right? It's like it's all these experiences, all these perspectives, all these different walks of life, and sometimes I think we as people just assume people don't want to hear that stuff, and I often think that too, and I kind of rush through life and don't really share as much. But I notice when I slow down a little bit and I share with people and share my journey, my perspective, it really helps a lot of people. So when I was really in the podcasting space, and people are like, man, I just don't know if I can start a show. I'm like, if you feel like you have something to share and you don't, then you're just super, selfish, because people are going to be something in your messaging has the potential to unlock destiny in somebody else. And every step of my journey in life, entrepreneurship, personal growth, business growth, whatever that is, it all came from someone sharing their story about something. This past year, I paid off $27,000 in credit card debt. My wife and I did. That came from someone sharing a different perspective than what I had on this app. I'm an Amazon influencer. We did over $100,000 in revenue last year. Me, working 25 hours a week, did over $100,000 in revenue. That whole business came from listening to someone's story on Clubhouse. Before that, I coached podcasters on sponsorship deals. That whole thing came from someone sharing their perspective, or asking me questions or saying, "Hey, I don't know how to figure it out," sharing their struggles. And so I think like stories are way underrated. We should share more, we should listen more, and there's so many stories. Like we all have so many stories, and we could say, I mean, we could say anything. Like we could say beach, and right now in your mind, you probably thought of something that has to do with the beach that you experienced and brought up a memory, and you have a story about it. And so I love it. I love this conversation, and hopefully in 2024 I can do more sharing. Last couple of years I've been head down on that dirty desk and just working. But hopefully this year I can inspire some people in their journey, because it's been a life changer for me just hearing other people's stories.
Thanks, Billy. Appreciate you, man. And I really am a fan of what Billy does. So, Tom, I'm going to ask you a question based on what Billy does and how I see Billy's storytelling. When sometimes we talk about story, and Billy tells a story every time, like, so I see this fun-loving guy, knowledgeable guy, like the day you put out the video about he said goodbye to one of his microphones, and he puts out a video of him eating a sandwich with his microphone, him taking a nap by his microphone, him hugging his microphone. Great video. Like, it told a story. I'm not suggesting Billy needs to tell his life story every time, but Billy is masterful with storytelling. It's just, it is, like you can see, oh, I know who this guy is. He's fun, he's smart, he's a straight shooter, and now he tells me a story. So what do you think about that, Tom? Are we too busy thinking about, I need to tell you where I went to high school and my bio about myself, when maybe the story is, here's a guy that loves content production so much he's willing to lay down beside his microphone. So just break that down.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think without question, people overthink the stories they tell all the time, or they never get started. I mean, this goes back to like early days of this, and I think early conversations that you and I had. on Clubhouse, we were talking about getting people started doing video. One of the biggest problems, one of the things that holds people back the most, is this, this idea or the fact that they overthink things, right? That sort of that inaction as a result of overthinking rather than just doing. And so one of the things that I encourage people to do is like think of the stories that you tell like at at a social function, right? So you're at a gathering, you're hanging out with friends, right? You're comfortable, you're relaxed. What are the stories you tell, right? Think about those stories and then think about how you tell them, right? And then take that knowledge and apply it to other things. So really all you're doing is sharing sort of mundane things. I think about this a lot in the context of like stand-up comedians too, right? Because you look at like a stand-up comedian, especially like a storytelling comedian, right? And you think about you like you listen to their work, you listen to like say their hour-long special, right? And it's a series of stories that are hilarious. And at some point, you probably think to yourself, how does so much funny stuff happen to one person, right? How does one person find themselves in so many ridiculous situations? And the answer is they don't. That's not how life works. Their life is no more necessarily interesting than anyone else's, right? The magic is in how they tell the stories, and also the fact that not all of those stories are true because they're stand-up comedians, right? So they're making some of that stuff up, right? Or they're using something that happened that was mundane as an idea, like a springboard, a starting point to tell a funny story, a funny version of that thing, but it's not necessarily always true. So, but the magic is in how they tell the story, how they take the listener on a journey, right? When you listen to a storytelling comedian, you're going on a journey with them. They take you by the hand and they lead you through the situation and point out all the amusing things along the way, right? So like when you're talking about this video that Billy put up saying goodbye to his microphone, right? It's taking something incredibly mundane, right? He was getting rid of a microphone and putting a creative, interesting spin on it, you know, anthropomorphizing that microphone and treating it like he's saying goodbye to an old friend, right? And he's showing all the things he did with that friend, right? With that trusted friend. So that's all it is, right? It's taking something mundane and putting an interesting spin on it, and then taking the audience by the hand and walking them through. You know, Billy saying, we've been through a lot, this microphone and I, right? And he's showing you, you know, we've done a lot of things together. We've had lunch together, you know, we've relaxed together, you know, we've gone on trips together, whatever the case may be, right? We've done all these things together. Look at all these things we've done together. Now it's time to say goodbye. Isn't it bittersweet, right? So he's taking you on a journey. He's holding you by the hand and showing you, pointing out all the funny, amusing, interesting things along the way. So that's how you should think about it. That's how you take something as simple as or as mundane as I'm getting a new microphone or I'm getting rid of this microphone, right? How you turn something like that into a video that's memorable for people, right? So just think about that. Think about the stories you tell in a social situation, how you tell those stories. How do you take your friends on a ride and make them feel like they were there when whatever happened, right? Whatever you're relaying to them, the story you're telling. How did you make them feel like they were there? Right? And if it's not something that comes naturally to you, if you're not naturally a good storyteller, then think of who in your friend group is the best storyteller you know. Who's the one that tends to dominate the conversation, right? When you're sitting in a group, and who's talking the most, who tells the most stories, right? Think about how they tell stories, the stories that they tell and how they tell them, and then start modeling some of that in the way you tell your stories. It's not rocket science. It's very simple techniques, and you just have to practice, right? You got to tell stories a lot to get good at it.
Love it, Dom. Thank you. The other day, I had an author tell me they said the subject matter they're writing about, they don't really talk about a lot. And I can see they don't talk about it. I can see they don't share it. I can see they aren't producing any content based on what they write about. And they're telling me, I'm comfortable, I'm comfortable, I'm comfortable. And I say, well, based on, sometimes you get a little tough love from me, based on 1 year of social media content, you've never talked about this one time. So I find it hard to believe that you're so comfortable talking about it, because based on a year, you haven't talked about it yet. So I want them to practice. I want them to, like Tom said, use parts of the story. You don't need to go all into it, but you could find where are, like Tom said, the stories that you're comfortable with, the stories that you've told over and over. Where can you segue into your message and start to realize, this is a space where I could start to share this. I could share this story, rather than if you're never try it, when are you going to share it? Ever. It's always going to be tough. So get out there and practice. Okay. Now we have big news today. Tom, go on.
Well, one thing I wanted to just tack on there, Dom. Sorry
This is
to
big news. Go on, Tom.
big
You
news.
know where I'm
Let me
going
just
too, because
interrupt
we're
real
going to
quick.
Dragon. Yeah.
But yeah, no, the one thing I want to hit on, which is another just little trick that people can think about, is as you're looking to tell stories and you want to sort of bring your audience along on this journey with you, think about relaying information through like sort of shared experiences, right? Common experiences, things that we all experience, right? So I'll give you one of mine. When I'm talking somebody through my sort of personal and work history, right? Which happens a lot on discovery calls. People will ask me, "Tell me about your career. How did you end up where you are today?" Right? And so I have a generalized kind of story that I tell, and I do. There's this one point in the story where I talk about when I decided to make the shift from working in the entertainment industry, from working in television, to starting my own business, right? To starting Talex Media. And the way I describe it was I had spent 17 years climbing a ladder, focused on hand over hand, foot over foot, going up the rungs of that ladder.
I received this already. Go on, Tom. Go
And I
on. I
got a
feel you.
couple of
Yes.
I got a couple of rungs from the top, and I had a moment to pause and look around, and I realized I didn't even like the view. And every time I say that part of the story, I get a little smile of recognition from the person I'm saying it to. And it's because like looking around and taking in a view and reacting to it is something that we have all done. If you are sighted, right? It's something that we've all done, that the vast majority of human beings can relate to. You can look around and take in a view and have an emotional reaction to it. So whether or not you've ever been someplace where you've gotten to, up to someplace high and looked around and gone, oh, that's kind of disappointing, right? Even if that's never happened to you, you can appreciate, you can empathize, you can emotionally relate to, like, God, that must be so disappointing, because every time I put in a lot of work and I get to a really high point, I climb a mountain, I hike someplace, I go to the edge of the Grand Canyon, I'm always blown away by the view. I can only imagine how disappointing it would be to spend years trying to get somewhere only to realize that the view sucks, right? So it's a universal human experience. It's a shared experience. And so almost everybody that I tell that story to can identify with that, what that kind of felt like, or what that must have felt like for me. So use those kinds of things in your storytelling, right? Look for the universal human shared experiences that you can relate to people, so that when you tell the story, they go, oh, okay, I get that. I can see how that would feel, or I've had that kind of experience. I get it, right? I know how that feels. That's the thing I wanted to say, is like, look for those kind of, that shared human experience, and use that to guide your audience along in the story and take them on a journey.
Well done, Tom. That was beautiful. I'm almost misty-eyed thinking about that. I mean, that's just everybody goes through it. You feel it. I mean, that turning point in so many people's lives, and you know it with that statement. Okay, this is big time. Everybody focus right now. Dragon JC, get ready for this. JC is our MC, Master of Ceremonies for Creative Con. He's going to blow it out of the water. But JC, me and Tom have known you for about a year right now, and we've decided we don't know how you became the dragon. So we want to know the story. Speaking of stories, and if you don't have a good story, make it up right now on the fly. Well, I fought a dragon once and slayed it. So what do you got, my friend?
That's so funny. You want that story now, not at the event?
Can you tease us? Come on, we got to know
No,
something.
I,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a much more elaborate story than we have time, but the basics of it, because everybody, that's the first question, by the way, that anyone would ask me on podcasts. So yeah, I gotta have that story straight. Um, but basically, if you look at the history of dragons, fire-breathing dragons, you can go back to any time and see that there was mention of them. Now, everybody always knew they didn't exist, but they always talked about these mythical creatures. So during the darkest times of my life, I used to always talk about the fact that the dragons were swooping over my head. So, how would you guys relate to that in line with what Tom was saying? How can you guys align with what I'm talking about? Just imagine your demons and, your fears and all of that stuff. I refer to those as the dragon swooping over my head. So, long story short, I have become today someone that back then I would probably look at as a mythical creature, meaning my accomplishments, the way I look at the world, the way I handle adversity. So that's part of it. But basically, it's all about, and this is something everybody can take. It's just about identifying that the monster in the closet is something you could either run from or, you know, acknowledge and confront, or take it to the next step, which I have in becoming the dragon and embodying it. So whenever you look at me and refer to me as the dragon, you're referring to me as somebody that carries my biggest fears with me 24/7. And that's just the way I live my life. And that's probably the catalyst for most of what I've accomplished. So that's that. And then there's also some fun bedroom stuff that has to do with my wife, which I will not share here.
Oh man. All right, man. Deep stuff, and we're going to hear more about it. So tell us. So now, storytelling. You interview people. You talk across the globe with lots of cameras on you. You got any storytelling tips for us?
Yeah, I was thinking about this, because I know we have podcasters here. I always value listening to you guys and John. And I see that Julie Loken's here. By the way, I just texted Julie. I said, Julie, are you alive? Because you're not in the clubhouse room right now. And she says, holy crap. So she's here now. What makes a good interview is, and this is in line with what you were saying, Tom. Obviously, you got to ask good questions. But what makes a good interview is where, the person starts sharing a story that, as Tom says, is relatable, right? It's called commonality. I mean, any good conversation with anybody is going to be one where the two people walk away saying, hey, I like that guy. The book that I'm going to be publishing soon is called Make Sense. So it's just all about that idea of someone looking at the other person saying, yeah, I get you, pointing at your head. So yeah, I just love asking questions that give the person the ability to tell their story, and in a unique way, so that they, if you interview someone and they say, hey, he's a great interviewer, that's what you've accomplished, is you've asked good questions that make them think, but you lead them into their story. What I'll share with you guys, one of my favorite podcasts, which is not really personal growth, which is the realm I like to sit in. I don't know if you guys have ever seen or listened to the podcast Smartless. I mean, it's one of the top podcasts with Jason Bateman. And um, these guys have the most interesting people on their show. Like, I just listened to an episode with Lars Ulrich from Metallica, and their whole entire podcast, first of all, very unique. If you guys don't know their podcast, this is a great idea. you never know who the guest is going to be, or other guys on the podcast don't know who the guest is going to be. It's always a surprise, so that's fun. But basically, you get to hear the stories of these just iconic, world-changing people. So that's probably what I love about it the most, is I love hearing just fascinating stories. So God, we could talk about this forever. I love this topic, but that's what I got.
Uh, I was just listening to an episode of Smartless yesterday, so I'm there with you. I like the podcast. I think the podcast itself obviously had a couple of things going for it. It's hosted by three very well known celebrities, right? So like in terms of becoming a big podcast, obviously,
And getting those quality guests, yeah.
absolutely, right? Like when one of those guys calls, and they're very well connected in the entertainment industry. So when one of those guys calls, and their agents know everybody else's agents, it's like it's a very easy thing for them to like land somebody like Lars Ulrich or like um, or any of the other huge. They've had Steven Spielberg on and all kinds of folks. But
Yeah.
what I really like about that podcast is that those guys, it's two things actually. There's two things that I really like about it. One is they don't take themselves too seriously, so there is a lot of banter between the three of them where they're basically just breaking each other's chops, like friends do, right? So
Kind
as
of
Dom
like
and
you and
I,
Dom.
yeah, as Dom and I are wont to do with each other.
There you go.
So there's really good banter between them because they break each other's chops. You can tell they're genuinely friends. And then the other thing too is they follow their curiosity. So they each will ask very different questions of the guests because they're each curious about different things. And like the episode I was listening to yesterday, the guest was Adam Driver. Um, and so they were, Jason was really curious about his story as an actor. Will was very curious about his time in the Marine Corps, and how he transitioned out of the Marine Corps and into acting. And oh God, what's the third guy's name? I'm totally blanking on it. Uh, Jason, Will, and it's the guy from uh, Will and Grace, just that played Jack, and I can't think of. I know his character's name on Will and Grace. Anyway,
Sean Hayes. Sean Hayes.
Sean Hayes. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Julie, for the win, saving me. So Sean Hayes and his husband are famously, if you listen to the podcast a lot, famously huge Star Wars fans, and so Sean just dove right in on Star Wars, and like all of his questions were about Star Wars. But
Yeah.
I appreciate that those guys follow their curiosity, and I think that's one of the things that makes those conversations really enjoyable to listen to. Is that they do that in sort of a very unabashed way. Um, Whereas I think often people just get focused on like they put in research, they write questions, and then regardless of whether or not the questions actually make sense, they get so focused on the time and effort they put into writing those questions that they want to ask the questions, regardless of whether or not it's a good, there's a good segue to it or it makes sense in the broader context of the
It's
conversation.
a
So
it's a really cool. There's a really cool. People can look this up. It's a great. It falls under motivational interviewing, but there's a cool strategy, because I teach a course on effective questions. But there's a great strategy, and this is what you're talking about. It's called reflective listening, and what that means is you ask a question. You ask a good question, but it's an icebreaker. But if you're actually listening, you'll ask a question based on what you heard that struck your interest. That's the essence of a great interview, but also the essence of a great story is when the story is, as you're saying, organically flowing. I just want to share one other thing because I got to run, but I learned this on Clubhouse. I forget who said this one time, but this guy was just talking about how do you land, if you're kind of up and coming or you've got a little bit of momentum, but you don't have a big name like John Wiley or something like that. How do you get like a well-known person? Because every now and then I would see small podcasts have big names on it. So one of the things was first, step one, go after the guests that are promoting something right now. They're launching a book, like with Jim Quick and stuff, or launching a new show or anything, because they're in that marketable, phase. But what I learned to do is I say to them, "Hey, listen, I'd love to have you on my show. Give some accolades about your show and your listeners, but say I've got great equipment. I ask great questions that will make sure that your story and whatever you're promoting comes out." That's what these guys want to hear. Because all you're really asking them to do is come on and have a conversation with you. So I just want to share that that's one of the ways that I've gotten quote unquote lucky, getting some big names on my show.
Dragon, you're the man. He's going to be our MC at Creative Con. Perfect time for me to do our Creative Con segue. One, we're going to have a networking event next week. I think it's next Wednesday night. Next Wednesday night at I think 5 o'clock Central, 5, 6. Julie, 5, 6. What time is it? Eastern. Well,
5 Eastern.
5 Eastern next week. But in February 17th and 18th, 2 days, we are going to have networking. We're going to have workshops. We're going to have keynotes. We're going to have practical application in podcasting, publishing, promotions, production, public speaking. We're going to have TEDx speakers. We're going to have syndicated people like John Jay there talking. We're going to have great MCs like our friend JC. We're going to get together in Chicago for 2 days, and we're going to make 2024 our best year yet. We're going to learn. We're going to dig into messaging. We're going to dig into storytelling. We're going to dig into how to make better videos. We're going to dig into production. We're going to be able to talk to all the people in these spaces. You're going to be able to meet them, connect with them, share business cards, share stories, ask them actual questions. There's going to be workshops where you can actually try things, make the videos, ask interview questions, whatever. Tom, what am I missing? It's just going to be off the charts and 100% value. Creative Con, February 17th and 18th.
Yeah, I mean, look, for all of our creative entrepreneur friends, right? Whether that's publishing, podcasting, promotions, production, whatever the case may be, if you're a creative entrepreneur, then this is where you want to be in February, right? You're going to hear from experts. You're going to get to network with each other, and we're going to have some fantastic workshops put together so that you guys can get some practical tips that you can put to work right away, right? So I think that's one of the
Yeah.
big things. It's not just a lot of talk, right? We're going to give you things you can walk away from the conference with and put to work right away to help improve your entrepreneurial journey, right? In
There
your
you go.
creative.
And alive, not the smartest guys in the room. And
There you
it's going to
go.
be even more awkward when when we're face to face and you are asking questions and things like that. So we are going to have some weird subjects to talk about, weird show and tells, live show and tell. It's going to be good stuff. So
Do,
get there.
do I have to bring a show and tell for the live?
You should. You should.
I should.
That's a
All
good
right.
idea.
I'll
Tom's
think of
first show and
something.
tell. All right, not the smartest guys in the room. Beth, we're talking storytelling. So, is there a way? Does it work for you? Do you have a story? Are you working on it? Is it something you see as valuable or not? What do you got going on, Beth?
Yeah, I am by far not a podcaster. Um, but I am working on a book with my sisters. Due to losses in our family this year brought us a lot closer. Um, and everybody in our family has always called us girls. But when you say the storytelling, it's so funny because we're not very far into the book because we argue over the stories because when you're living together and going through the same experience, each person has a different story about that experience. The only experience that my sisters and I can tell the same story on is the fact that our mom gave us pork chops one time and made us all sick. So this has been a very interesting. Never thought I'd write a book. Um, Very interesting trying to tell your story, and then you're sitting there with your two sisters, and they're like hitting you over the head, like that is not the way it went. This is the way it went.
Hey,
Nope,
Beth.
I'm not.
Beth, you guys, you ladies are allowed some creative freedom there. So you can marry the three of your stories together, and that's all right.
Yeah, that's kind of what we're working on of showing it because we're each 4 years. Well, my oldest sister is 4 years older than my middle sister, and then my middle sister is 4 years older than me. So the perspective of the way we saw things were completely different, and it's okay. Like, so yeah, we're working on the way to put everything in together, but we're working with someone really good, so it should come out great. But yeah, storytelling, guys, it can be different for the person that's sitting right beside of you when you each tell the same story of the same experience. But that's all I have.
Okay, and that's a great point, and there's nothing wrong with that. That the story should be different, and it's okay to tell a story a different way each time. I love if, let's say, bios here. If you are on Clubhouse, it is okay to come in and tell your bio or tell who you are a little bit different each time. You don't have to give the same canned response each time. You could try something new. You could talk about a different component of your business, a different component of the story best. And she could come in, hey, I'm a storyteller. I write about my family and my sisters and this, and it's this. Okay, cool. You know, next time she comes in, hey, I'm real estate and I do this. Man, cool. Nothing wrong with that. So, okay, we're going to continue this storytelling topic. So Dr. Tachi interviews people, tells story. Dr. Tachi, like Billy, she could tell a story about the hat she was wearing and make it captivating. So, Dr. Tachi, you got any tips for us? How do you do it? How is it integral to your brand?
You mean storytelling?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, storytelling is everything. Do I have a tip? Okay, I have to think about
Well, it's
that.
all tips from you. I mean, because you are, I mean, just because you do it 24/7. Hey, I got a question. I was watching a video the other day of yours, and I got about 2 minutes in, and you were like, I'm at the beach, I'm at the beach, I'm at the beach. And were you just messing with me, or did you finally turn and show me a picture of like the ocean?
I did.
Okay, okay.
I did.
There was
You can
such a
see that
buildup. I'm
we're at the
like, she's
beach
at the
together
beach, and then
before.
I'm okay. And then something happened. Okay, go on.
I did. So that Well, that's interesting because that's part of my storytelling thing, the going live and showing people things live in the moment. And so most of the time I'm planning the live so people know on Wednesdays that I'm usually doing my show. But every once in a while I will pop up or do a pop up that's impromptu because my life is not always planned. So that day I just happened to go, I was at the store and I said, you know what? I live a mile from the beach and I'm never there. Let me just drive home down the beach and park and sit. And that's exactly what I did. And so I sat for a moment and then I said, you know what? I'm going to share it. So I took in some of it for myself and then I decided to share them. So obviously, in true form, whenever I go on and that's just me, I, I, I have to offer some value. And you don't have to do that necessarily, but I feel like I do. I'm like, if I'm on, I need to make use of this airtime. And so I did kind of a live Be More where we talked about a subject from the beach. So kind of like a beach more That's exactly what I did. So part of the branding and the storytelling is definitely live streaming and going live, but periodically I will um, do an impromptu live because that's life. Sometimes it's impromptu. Now, the thing is also, I know that because I've built an audience who is used to coming on to see me, that if I do go live, I'm going to get some people. So it's not like I'm just sporadic here and there, nobody knows. So if I do come on and it's outside of the time, people are like, oh, well, what's going on? And people will come on. And then even if it's a few at first, it grows the longer that I'm on. So I don't know if that is a tip per se, but I would say that planned is great, but sometimes go off the beaten path or off of what you normally do, especially if you already have an audience, because your audience will appreciate that.
Love it, Dr. Tachi. And I would think that I know people talk about pillars of social media, pillars of marketing, and things like that. I would think you should add in uh, creating your own stage. Like our friend Heidi Dunstan, she talks about creating your own stage a lot. And that is a form of creating your own stage, like that impromptu live. So people see Dr. Tachi in all these different ways. They see the Be More, they see her on the pre-show, they see her on a regular show. But doing that live stream is one more. It's unique. Like I tuned in because I like Dr. Tachi, but also I wanted to see the beach, but I don't have that much time. You made me wait too long for the beach, Dr. Tachi. I needed some beach. She was at the beach, Tom, in one of her. I wonder if everybody in the room thinks, "Damn, Dom's on social media a lot," because every time, like I'm like, I saw Billy's stuff, I saw John's stuff, I saw Dr. Tachi's video. I still remember uh, uh, podcast Tom made. I was skiing the other day, and I was skiing down the hill, and it was the fastest I've went in a while. And I remembered a podcast Tom had where you talked about riding your bike downhill, and you said that the one thing about riding your bike downhill, it's like being a kid again because you're just going fast. So that day I was skiing, and I thought about something Tom said in a podcast from 4 years ago before I even really knew Tom. So yeah, you can make an impact like that.
Yep. Doesn't matter how old you are, going fast on a bike is always fun.
Yeah, right. Same thing going downhill on my skis. All right, Phil, we're talking storytelling. I'm slow today, so sorry. Okay, show and tell, quick show and tell before we get to Phil. I'm going to do it quick today. Can you see this little thing? Jim Aj, I see you down there. You're going to have to jump on. You're going to have to jump on the live stream. This is a pen. Pen. I never say that word right. PIN. I avoid saying it just because I can't say it. I have a friend who's a Mexican wrestler, a luchador, and his name is Yenza, the Mexican luchador, and he comes out to mariachi and things like that. So this is something the little wrestler gave me. The wrestler gave me. It makes me smile. We go to the events. Me and my friend Jim go to his events, and we cheer like you've never seen because the luchador is my friend. So when he's battling under the bridges in Pittsburgh and stuff like that, we love him. But I will tell you, on a side note, I was on the way to I gave up anger for 2024, so I'm 2 days in. I'm trying not to be angry, and you think I'm nice, but I am. I try to be nice. But a couple weeks ago, I was going to a Steeler game. I had a black and gold shirt on that said Yenza Lucha. And somebody came up to me at the convenience store and he said, "You going to WrestleMania?" And I'm like, I was on my way to the Steeler game wearing black and gold, and I just see this and I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "You going to WrestleMania?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" And then, like, I'm so angry at this guy because I think he's talking about my friend, the Mexican luchador. But really, he was just seriously, he knew the wrestler and was just asking me if I was going to WrestleMania. So I need to take it down a notch. But here is my PIN that says Pittsburgh. Yenza, follow Yenza. Okay, moving on. Phil, storytelling, man. How are you doing it with your Amazon Lives? How are you integrating it with your whatever you got? Whatever you got going on with your news breaks. Go on.
Good morning, Dominic. Good morning, everyone. Hey, real quick, I want to share a quick win. So Monday, uh, New Year's hitting. I'm really inspired about hanging around with all you guys and just developing and learning more about myself and just committing to doing things, just getting them done. Like my friend Billy in my Amazon circle, and another friend of mine that is Candy, the security lady, who is in my Amazon circle, and she's on social media on Amazon Live. So I shared with Candy at 3 o'clock in the afternoon that she should be podcasting and she should maybe do a YouTube podcast. And she thought about it and she says, "You know what, that's a great idea." And I shared with her the quickie turnaround that I had to do to get up my link tree before my wonderful interview with John the other day, and she thought that was neat. So by 11 o'clock Monday night, I get a message from her. First, I get a message that she's got this brand new link tree popped up with her logo, and it looks great. She says that she's not done yet. Before midnight, she's created a podcast on YouTube and posted it. And as of today, she has two. And I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. You outran me all of a sudden, just like Billy did before. And I have no one to thank, really, especially I want to thank John and I want to thank Julie because they've inspired me. That wasn't my story, but that was that. That was the win. I was pumped about it. Here's the deal. About a year ago, I think John, as he always does, extends invites, and I was in and out of some of the rooms, and I didn't take John up on the wonderful opportunity it would have been to be on, the law enforcement talk radio with all of its listeners. I had the imposter syndrome. I didn't know what I would talk about. loop around now, hanging out with you all for a few months now. And I want to say that it's been just interesting that I've been developing me. I attended the virtual CreatorCon conference, and there I got to know Dominic better, got to know Tom better, John, Heidi, Jason, Julie, but especially John and Julie, who have been key in this. Through there, I learned all those pieces like in CreatorCon. Book publishing. I think I might want to write a book one day. Don't know what about. I need to increase my public speaking because I'm going to be teaching union electrician apprentices in about a month. Okay, I want to get on stages at conventions. I need to get my podcast going and all of that, and it's all tying in. Now is the time, and so here it is. Um, John was wonderful enough to extend again, and I took him up on it. And I said, "Yes, I'll be on the podcast." So the whole time for the last week coming up to it, I thought, well, I'm not law enforcement, so what am I going to talk about? Well, all of my cameras and security items are needed by law enforcement every day. So I'm just going to be a supporter of law enforcement. I had no idea what John was going to ask me about. Little did I know that, and I'm tying all you guys in. Watch this. John took that interview in 4 segments, and he caught a little piece from a phone call with me that we delve into me being bullied when I was in the 3rd grade. My parents moved us out of the rough, gang ridden west side of Chicago right after that to start the 4th grade, and I became the bully. And I bullied my whole 4th grade class. But my parents brought me there for a reason, to give me a better way of life and the riches of life, and that's where kind of I am today. Full circle, we led into part of the interview where I took care of my dad for 4 years with Alzheimer's. And if you want to know, outside of security, I have a passion for that. Part of me taking care of my dad allowed me to use my tech tools of Ring doorbells and all to monitor my dad's situation and take care of that. We talked very little about security. We talked very little about products. We talked about life and real situations. And John was able to teach me how he can bring those things out, and I can do the same with others. So that was so cool. And in the end of it all, Dominic, I had anger issues right after my dad's passing for several months, and how I got back and through that, the interview was done. I don't know how it's going to turn out this Saturday when it launches, but it was a really neat, cool piece. Now, if I ever write a book, Dominic, the book is going to be like the one that you wrote about your mom. My name is Sharon. Well, my book may be something like My Name is John, ties into that story I told John about in that podcast. Um, I think that, and Julie and John, I thank you guys tremendously. Jason, I thank you because you threatened me in 48 hours if I didn't create that Newsbreak article, which is going to drive the SEO for my future podcast. I may have procrastinated a little longer, but Jason, thank you for that. So I think about the development that this group, and just following the lead of this group, and then all of you individually and then collectively, to help me develop. And a lot of it ties back to what you're going to get in Chicago. So I'm trying every way possible, Julie knows, to get to Chicago, because there I will develop more of me. And just want to thank you all. That's a bit of my story, and it's not finished yet.
Man, love it. But and I'll tell you, John Jay, the way Phil just talked about that interview, can't wait to hear it, man. And that authenticity, love it. I mean, it just I didn't know so many of those things, and like me and Tom are just messaging back and forth, like, wow, what a good dude. Like, just man, you stole my heart. So thanks for the kind words as well. But you're kicking ass and keep sharing your story. Okay. It is 10:44. I am leaving at 11 o'clock today because I'm in full authenticity. My son's a type 1 diabetic. He's 17 years old. He's been a type 1 diabetic since he was 3 years old. He used to get 10 to 12 shots a day. Now he wears a pump. When he was little and young, he was sickly and had issues everywhere. Now he's big and strong and taller than me and jumps up and grabs the rim. And it's amazing. I'm like, man, this kid just keeps getting bigger. So I got to stand up straight all the time. And he's taller than me. I'm still saying I'm taller, but I think he is taller. And he's got this big hair. But anyway, we have to go to Children's today at got to get to Pittsburgh. So we're going to wrap it up tight, sharp at 11. So, Leslie, what's going on? Tell us about storytelling. How are you using it? Are you changing it in 24? What do you got for us?
Absolutely. And to everybody, happy 2024. Yeah, who doesn't want to hear about story? We all thrive by storytelling and connecting with people. So, yeah, I am going to be getting back to my 4 years of content and refreshing it and really just posting who am I? What is the background of this avid equestrian, this person who lost my mother to Alzheimer's and had a stroke. And just right off the bat resonated with Phil right away. And I was like, well, that's something I didn't know about Phil. So people that have that background who had to take care of ailing parents or whatnot, we just thrive on that. And just getting back to the foundation of sharing, who am I and why am I doing this podcasting? And how my story of living has put me into this position of just loving the podcasting. But I wanted to just quickly share, because we're wrapping up here, that Julia Louise Dreyfus, so she has a podcast. And if you have an opportunity, what really caught my attention was when she was interviewing Jane Fonda and the power went off on Julia's end. So she was remote and Jane was in another location, I think in her home. But they showed and they taped and they had for everybody to listen what was going on with Jane on her end and her saying, did I say anything to her? Why did everything shut down? So I was like, oh, I hope they keep that rolling so we can listen to this. And it was really fascinating. And they eventually did get on, but Julia's F bombing and she's like, what the F? What this Jane Fonda? How many freaking people get to interview Jane Fonda? So yeah, everybody wants to hear everybody's story, no matter who you are, where you are in this world, in this planet, because everybody can connect. So just wishing everybody love for 2024, that it's going to be prosperous and healthy.
Leslie, well said. And you make a good point. Like everybody wants to hear the story, but what we're helping people do and want them to do is articulate it better and get it out and know what it is. And so you're not lingering and meandering. Like tell the story, just like Phil told that story. And to Tom's point earlier about like things that we can all understand, I just went back. Who hasn't? I mean, who hasn't been the bully or been bullied? I would think at some point every one of us has felt that in our lives, whether at a job, in school, something hit the note, sick parents, career change, all that, man. So beautiful, masterful all around. Let's keep it rolling. I'm inspired by all you guys. Thank you. We're kicking off this year right. My buddy Jim Aj down there, he's causing trouble. He just sent a message to me and my wife about that Dom's not getting angry in 2024. Come on, I am not. I am. He says he gives it 2 weeks. Man, what a troublemaker! No anger, no short temper. I'm straight. Okay, Julie Loken, what's up? Storytelling, does it matter? Julie, do you tell stories?
I tell stories. I tell other people's stories. But let's talk about this anger problem. I don't
You
think
help
it's
them elevate them. Yes. Go
I
on.
don't necessarily believe you have an anger problem. I believe you have a Diet Mountain Dew problem.
I haven't had any today, but I did have an iced coffee this morning. Dr. Tachi, I went to this place. I went to a new Oliver's Poorhouse or something for breakfast. Got this giant burrito. I don't usually eat breakfast, so I'm all out of sorts from this big burrito. But I couldn't ask. I didn't want to ask if I was with like 8 guys, and I couldn't ask if they had iced coffee. So I stopped at McDonald's on the way home. But okay, sorry, Julie, go on.
Was it like a coffee or coffee flavored milkshake? Like just to be clear.
The one I got at McDonald's, it was great. It was caramel iced coffee. And Diet Mountain Dew is not a problem, Julie. Go on. You are
Okay, we'll
elevating
see.
people's stories. So Julie, just how can one elevate their story?
Well, the thing is that you have to understand the art of, if you are a storyteller in the context that we're talking about it, understand that self promotion, which sounds like narcissism, is is integral in sharing your story. Number one, even if Tom is nodding, I don't know, I'm not watching him. If he's nodding his head, oh, self promotion, I hate
No,
that.
I think you hit it. No, I think Tom likes
He
what you're
is.
saying.
Oh, yay,
I am
yay!
feeling Tom is with you. It is not narcissism. It's branding. It's messaging. It's your
Yeah.
story that's valuable. That's like
Well,
Billy said. It could
you're
change the
self
world.
promoting right now.
Go on.
Everybody on the stage is self promoting, and we get a little layer of your stories, right? Everything you do and the way we behave around others is part of our story. And when we understand and have the ability to unpeel a little bit of vulnerability and share it with the audience, like Phil did, you know, he might not have felt comfortable sharing that story because he clearly said he was a bully in fourth grade, and everybody, oh, a bully, Phil's bad. No, but we can relate with it as children, as parents. We understand that hurt people. And there's even a deeper layer to that story, I'm sure. But that, I betcha, made a huge, that's the one thing people are going to remember today when they walk away from this room. Phil was a bully, but he is a reformed bully, and he is share, paying it forward. So that's the power of storytelling, guys. Share other people's stories, and don't forget to self promote.
Well done, Julie. You're killing it. I would like to thank everybody in this room right now. This is the best room of 2024. This has been the best, not the smartest guys in the room of 2024. Okay, Heather, storytelling. I've been watching the videos. Heather's got an. She's going. I would almost say. See, like I said, I've been watching the videos. I might have a problem. But Heather has stripped it down a notch, and I would say, are you trying? One, she's giving tips, valuable tips. You always get good stuff from Heather, but she's also like, I'm going no makeup. I'm going straight. I'm being me. Am I sensing that, Heather?
Yeah, I don't give a shit. Literally, because that's the thing though. Because I've been watching, right? And I've been doing those social media tips. Heather Cox, social media tips today. Thank you so much. Nobody likes that shit no more. I'm telling you. And so
I
I
love
literally
your glasses, Heather.
I bought a little mic, and I'm literally, when I get it in the mail today, I'm gonna be like, okay, so you don't like that, and then just like literally talk about, okay, like obviously there's this shift because, and I'm gonna look at it from like the astrological standpoint, like astrology. So we are now moving out of a 15-year period, and we are now moving into like essentially the age of Aquarius in regards to like where Pluto's at. And so it's all about, before it was all about that clean aesthetic, everybody being perfect, makeup done, hair done, like everything needs to be perfect. Now everybody wants authenticity, that's storytelling, that, you know, instead of saying, hi, here are the top 5 tips of social media, instead we should be saying, you know what's really worked for me in the past 2 years? Hey, my name's Heather. I've been doing social media for a decade. So you know what I've been doing so far? And like you create the 5 tips, not just boom, 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 but into a story. So that's where the shift is coming. And yeah, like paring it down into the smaller snippets, because that's the other problem that I see a lot of people. They do the long form content, and then they put the long form content out there, but then they have no other content to put in between the long form content because they're not chopping up the videos into vertical, or they don't have any other content in between the long form. So what do you do? So I'm like, okay, like I'm going to be getting the long form. My studio is almost done. I'm doing a LinkedIn audio every Friday now, with my friend and colleague Jane Clark, who is the owner of Brand Swan. And then, so that's supplementing the audio. The short form video, the quick storytelling is going to supplement the long form. And then I'm going to put out the long form once my studio is done, and then chop that up to be long form, short form. So I have these multiple avenues, because I felt as though that I was getting stuck into one medium. And I feel like that happens to a lot of people. So I'm trying to break out of the box of just this perfectionism, this one avenue, being stuck in this one box. I want to go high level, low level, medium level, audio level, visual level, because, you know, it's my time now. So thanks.
Heather, I'm seeing it. I'm watching it. It's cool. Tom, you got any thoughts on that? Heather's killing it out there. Hey, all of
I,
you need to step up your social media liking and watching game like me. So go on, Tom.
I love what she's doing. I love what she's talking about. I love basically, you know, Heather. What Heather's talking about is she's legendeering her content strategy, right? Like, I mean, that is exactly what Heather has just described to you guys that she's doing. That's what legendeering is, right? So like, call it call it what you want. I'm always going to call it legendeering because that's how I refer to it. But like, whatever you want to call it, Heather, like as long as you're doing it, I'm a happy camper. And this is what we need more people to do, right? Create authentic, story driven content that brings value to your audience, right? You create long form content and then you repackage and repurpose that content across platform to drive audience to your longer form content, right? Like it's a very straightforward strategy. It's what Legendary is all about. It's what the book is all about that I have coming out. And I love to hear people putting it into practice. And I know, Heather, I know you're not doing it because you've read the book because the book's not out yet, but I love it nonetheless. Like the more people doing this kind of thing, the better off we're all going to be because it's going to improve the relationships we have with the people and the organizations we do business with. So that's the goal is to humanize the world of business. So I love it. I love it.
Same wavelength, Tom. Same wavelength.
Yeah, loving it. Best show at 24. You guys are kicking butt. Thank you. Brandon, new picture for Brandon, I believe. Let me see here. I like this. I like this new drawing, Brandon. See? So Brandon, storytelling, what do you got for us? How are you implementing it? That's a good word. Go on, Brandon.
Oh, hello. Yeah, thanks for looking at the illustration. So, well, since I'm a designer, I don't know if anybody noticed this with designers, but we don't really turn the camera around and show ourselves. We're usually just working on other people's stuff and making them look really good. I don't know why that is. So, I have two goals this year. Uh, I'd like to work with more local businesses. I just, for some reason, constantly work with people not in my area. So I just need to turn the camera around so they see me, they know me, and I'm like one of the people in their neighborhood that they can trust. Um, and then just showing more of the behind the scenes stuff that I do. I guess I noticed something over the last few years in my freelance business is when I'm going over these websites or whatever design I'm doing, they're always telling me I should record that and share that for other business owners to know. And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, I will. I never do. But this year, I have a little list and I'm capturing all those little things that people tell me because they're giving me ideas. All I got to do is just do the damn thing. Yeah, it's not like designers don't like showing themselves. Well, they don't. They don't. They just don't feel comfortable, and we're so exhausted by the time we're making everyone else look good that it's just too much to make content out of ourselves. But yeah, that's kind of what I have going on this year.
Brandon, love it, man. You make me the one thing that I'm leaving you with this, and then Tom's going to wrap it up. But I love this idea about what Brandon's really talking about there is documenting what's going on. And so he's in this interesting world of design and he can document his process, document what's going on. So rather than always think of like, oh, I got to go out and create 20 new pieces of content this week and things like that. What if you were able to document your computer, document what you got going on the screen, half of a drawing. Like, I wonder if Tom loads his cameras when he takes them to a place. Wonder what it looks like in the back of his truck. I wonder how many books I have sitting here in boxes. Things like that. That if you could just document it, then you don't have to create. So anyway, that's all I got for you. I'm Dominick Domasky. I'm happy to be here. Not the smartest guys in the room. Love you. Like I said, best room of 24. And now Tom's going to take us away and leave us on a really high note. What do you got, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I think the lesson there is document and share, right? And it's particularly difficult. I can totally empathize with Brandon, as a fellow creative. When you're in that sort of creative process, it's really hard to kind of separate out enough brain space and enough mental capacity to also do a good job of documenting what you're doing because you're really focused on the creative problem solving work, and having to try to document at the same time can be really, really challenging. So I can totally empathize with that. But I just want to leave you guys with this. as we talked about earlier, Tom and I are going to be at Creative Con in February. If you haven't yet, if you're in the creative world, in the creative realm, check it out. Go to creativecon.com. That's CRE, the number 8, TIVECON.com, creativecon.com. Check it out. Tickets are on sale now. We'd love to see you guys there. It's going to be a fantastic event. And the last thing I will say is tell your stories. Tell your stories. Practice them, perfect them, tell them. Because, like I said earlier, the way we started this whole conversation is how I'm going to finish it today. Brands become legends not because of what they sell, but because of the stories that they tell. So, everybody, have a great rest of your week. Love you guys. Thanks for being here for the best, not the smartest guys in the room of 2024. And we will see you guys next Wednesday, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time, right here at Not the Smartest Guys in the Room. Until then, love you. Thanks so much for being a part of this community. We appreciate you. And we'll see you in a week. Have a great weekend. Bye, everybody.